Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time we're going back to 2007,
Oh, wow.
to a moment that really did, I think, change the tech landscape as we know it.
It did.
And that is the unveiling of the original iPhone by Steve Jobs at Macworld.
Yeah.
And we're going to be taking a deep dive into the transcript of that keynote.
The transcript is fascinating. There's so much in there.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you can glean just from reading his words and like how he presented this device to the world.
Like, it's all there. The seeds of what the iPhone would become, and also so much about how Apple was thinking at the time, like how they viewed the competition.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget now in 2025,
Right.
just how different the world was back then.
Oh, yeah.
2007, there was no app store.
Right.
Mobile internet was
Clunky.
clunky. Like, I remember trying to browse the web on my flip phone.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was painful.
You have to scroll forever to see like a tiny little bit of a web page.
Like, even just the idea of a smartphone was still kind of
It wasn't.
it wasn't fully formed.
Right.
And the iPhones that were out there, they weren't exactly sleek or elegant.
No, they weren't.
But so Jobs starts off this keynote,
Mhm.
and I just love this line. He calls the iPhone 3 revolutionary products in one.
He did.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator.
Right.
And so, was that just marketing genius?
Or
Or was there something truly revolutionary about that convergence?
I think it was both. I mean, it was definitely a brilliant marketing move.
Yeah.
But it also signaled a real shift in
Mhm.
thinking, before the iPhone, those functions were very much siloed. Like, you had separate
They did.
devices for each,
Totally.
separate interfaces, separate experience.
Yeah, so what were you using back then for music and calls and internet?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. I had
Yeah.
a little iPod Nano for music.
Okay.
A flip phone that could barely send text messages. And if
Uh-huh.
I needed to actually, do anything on the internet, it was my laptop.
Right. And I think that's what Jobs was tapping into was
Totally.
this desire for something better, something more integrated.
Right.
I don't think people necessarily knew that they wanted it.
Yeah.
But when they saw it, they were like,
Yes.
this is it. This is the future.
Yes. It wasn't just convenience either.
Right.
It was about reshaping how we interacted with information,
Mhm.
how we connect with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made it so profound.
Totally. And he then goes on to spend a good chunk of time sort of dissecting the shortcomings of existing smartphones.
He did.
Talking about how
They were clunky.
yeah, the tiny screen.
The crammed keyboards,
yeah.
the interfaces that felt like they were designed by engineers, not for humans.
Totally. And he makes a really good point because
Yeah.
especially at this time,
Right.
mobile apps were starting to emerge.
They were, but
They were really primitive, but you could see the potential.
Right, exactly.
And those early smartphones, they just weren't equipped to handle the complexity of what software could do.
Yeah, they just weren't.
So he sets up this problem really well.
Yeah.
And then the curtains open and bam,
Mhm.
he unveils the iPhone.
I love that moment.
It's so good. And it's a giant screen at the time.
It was huge.
No keyboard.
No keyboard.
Just this idea of multi-touch.
Yeah, just using your fingers.
I still remember watching that keynote live.
Yeah.
And thinking,
It was like magic.
wait, what? We can just touch the screen.
I know. It was like something out of Star Trek.
Totally. And he was clearly so proud of that innovation.
You could tell.
There's this part where he says, and boy, have we patented it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, well, and, little did he know all the patent wars that would follow.
right. How much of a legal battleground
Yeah.
that multi-touch interface would become. But it speaks to how groundbreaking it was.
It really does. Oh, we take touchscreens for granted now, but back then it was
Revolution.
revolutionary. And it wasn't just about touch, it was about the type of touch.
Oh, okay.
The iPhone used a capacitive touchscreen,
Right.
which was far more responsive and accurate than the resistive touchscreens that were common at the time.
Interesting.
And that responsiveness was key
Right.
to making the interface feel so natural
Yeah.
and intuitive.
Yeah. So it wasn't just the idea of touch. It was the way that it worked
Exactly.
that made it so special.
Exactly.
So we talk about the hardware, but let's talk about the software. Because I think that was just as important,
Oh, absolutely.
if not more so,
Yeah,
to the iPhone's success. And Jobs makes this really bold claim.
he does.
He says that the iPhone software is 5 years ahead of the competition.
5 years.
And it was built on the foundation of OS X, which at the time was powering their
Their desktop computer.
desktop computers. That was a huge gamble, wasn't it?
It was a huge gamble, but
Yeah.
it was also brilliant because it meant they could leverage existing development tools, create more powerful, sophisticated apps,
Mhm.
and essentially bring that desktop experience to the palm of your hand.
Right. And they also made a big deal about the integration with iTunes, which at the time was
Huge.
massive,
Yeah, millions of people were already using iTunes.
syncing their music.
Yeah.
So bringing that experience to the phone, seemed like a no-brainer.
It was a no-brainer from a user experience perspective
Yeah.
and from a business perspective.
Okay.
For Apple, it meant a built-in user base, a familiar interface,
Right.
and a way to kind of leverage that existing ecosystem that they'd already built.
Yeah, totally. And then Jobs, He loves design,
He does.
and he goes full design geek.
He does.
In this keynote, talking about the iPhone's physical features, the 3.5-inch screen,
Yeah.
the single home button.
That single home button.
Yeah, how ridiculously thin it was.
I mean, you watch it now, and it looks like a brick compared to today's phones.
Yeah, totally.
At the time,
It was like paper thin.
it was paper thin, amazing.
And he was meticulous in describing every detail.
That's Apple.
Yeah.
That attention to detail is like a hallmark of their design philosophy.
Right. And it wasn't just about aesthetics either.
No.
Like, he pointed out these 3 sensors that were pretty innovative at the time.
Yeah.
Proximity ambient light and an accelerometer.
Right.
So can you break down like how those contributed to the user experience? Because I think people might not realize how important those were.
So each of those sensors played a really important role
Yeah.
in making the iPhone feel more intuitive and
Okay.
responsive.
Okay.
So for example, the proximity sensor would turn off the screen when you brought the phone to your ear.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. So it would prevent accidental touches.
Right, because otherwise your cheek would be like, oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hanging up on people or
Yeah.
like,
foot dialing.
yeah, butt dialing.
That's a good one.
And then the ambient light sensor would adjust the screen brightness based on your surroundings.
Okay.
So it'd be easier to see in different lighting conditions.
Right.
And then the accelerometer enabled things like landscape mode,
Okay.
which was a game changer for watching videos
Right.
or
Yeah.
browsing photos.
Okay. Yeah. So like they all seem like small things,
They were huge.
but they added up to make the experience
Yeah, it was all part of this
so much better.
holistic, seamless experience that Apple was going for.
Yeah. And he tells this great story about showing the iPhone to somebody at Apple. And the person just said,
They had me at scrolling.
you had me at scroll. It's like we take scrolling for granted now.
I know.
But back then it was a revelation.
It was because it was so smooth
Yeah.
and responsive.
Right. Like you could just flick your finger.
And it would just glide.
Yeah. It was like magic.
It was. Jobs really understood that those seemingly small interactions
Right.
were key to
Yeah.
creating that really delightful user experience.
It's funny because when you think back to those early smartphones,
Oh, yeah.
like the scrolling was always like janky.
Janky and slow.
Yeah, it was like you'd have to like push the screen really hard. And it would like
Yeah.
kind of jump.
Yeah, and it would refresh slowly.
It was the worst.
The worst. So the fact that the iPhone scrolling was so smooth,
Yeah.
it's like a revelation.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's move on to kind of the phone features themselves
Hmm.
and how Jobs really emphasized that the iPhone was designed to make those everyday tasks easier and more intuitive.
Right.
So like making calls, managing
Ah.
contacts.
Right. All that stuff that we kind of take for granted now.
Right.
He wanted to make it simpler,
Yeah.
more elegant, more efficient. And I think that's where his vision for this like seamless integrated experience really comes through.
Mhm.
It wasn't just a collection of features.
Right.
It was like a holistic system
Yeah.
designed to make your life easier
Yeah.
and more connected.
And one of the features that he highlights that I think really exemplifies that is visual voicemail,
Oh,
which at the time
was revolutionary.
blew my mind. It blew everyone's mind.
Because suddenly you could see a list of your voicemails
Right.
and choose which one to listen to first.
Yeah. Instead of having to listen to them in order.
Which was always the worst.
The worst.
Like if you had like 5 voicemails
there's stuff.
and the one you wanted was like the last one,
Oh, I know.
it was torture.
It was.
And so this just seems so obvious now.
Oh.
But back then it was like mind-blowing.
It was revolutionary, and it wasn't something they could do alone.
Okay.
This required working closely with Singular,
Right.
who later became AT&T,
Yeah.
to make it happen.
Wow. So it was a real like partnership
Yes, a real
for
partner.
bring this feature to life.
Yeah, it highlights how important those partnerships
Yeah.
would become
Yeah.
in shaping the mobile landscape.
Yeah. And speaking of partnerships.
Yeah, he couldn't resist spending a good chunk of time highlighting the web browsing experience on the iPhone
Yeah.
with Safari.
With Safari and contrasting that with
Yeah, he really hammered home the difference between Safari and
those clunky W browsers.
Bambi browsers that were
Go
coming
on. Oh, it was so bad.
on other phones at the time.
Oh, it was the worst.
Oh my God.
Like I can't even remember the last time I used a WebP browser.
It's been years.
But it was like trying to access the internet through like a tiny little pinhole.
It was slow. It was limited.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible
It was
experience.
bad.
But bringing a full-fledged web browser
Yeah.
to the phone
Mhm.
was a huge leap forward.
It was. And I think it really did pave the way for the mobile internet as we know it.
It did. It was a direct challenge
Mhm.
to the existing mobile internet paradigms.
Yeah.
And it fundamentally changed how we access information
Totally.
and connect with the world.
Yeah. And he does this great demo
He does.
of like Safari on the phone. Yeah, he shows Google Maps, he shows widgets.
Yeah.
Like all these things that we now take for granted.
And it was so fluid.
It was so fluid.
It's like even watching it now,
Yeah.
it's impressive.
It's still impressive how smooth and responsive it was.
So one of my favorite moments from the keynote
Tell me.
is when Jobs tells the story about Eric Schmidt suggesting Apple Goo
Oh, yeah.
as a name for like a merged company.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine?
Like it's just such a like a funny little glimpse into
I know. That early relationship.
Yeah, like the early days of Apple and Google.
Right before they became
Yeah, before they became like bitter rivals.
bitter rivals.
But it also speaks to the significance of these partnerships.
Yeah.
Apple was partnering with Google, with Yahoo,
Right.
to integrate their services into the iPhone. And, imagine the iPhone without Google Maps.
I know. Or YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost unthinkable now.
Right.
So these partnerships really did play a crucial role in shaping the early iPhone.
They did. They absolutely did. And I think
In the mobile landscape.
the mobile landscape as a whole.
Yeah. So we're getting towards the end of the keynote here. And Jobs spends a good chunk of time breaking down the iPhone's price
Yeah.
in relation to iPods and smartphones.
Right. Because he's trying to position it as a value proposition, even though it was pretty expensive at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely a premium device.
It was a premium device.
And he's talking about, the 2-year contract model.
Right. The carrier partnerships,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And it was a different approach to selling phones back then.
It was.
Like now we're so used to,
Have
these...
these payment plans and
Yeah.
subsidized phones.
Yeah, but back then it was like you paying full price
Yeah.
for the phone up front.
And you were locked into that carrier
Yeah.
for 2 years.
Oh, so it was a big commitment.
It was a big commitment.
And then he lays out his goal
Oh, yeah.
for the iPhone.
What was it?
1% market share in 2008.
1% doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah, about
I've translated to 10 million units.
10 million units.
Which was ambitious.
It was ambitious for a brand new product.
Totally.
In a brand new category.
But it shows, his confidence
It does.
and his vision.
He wasn't just aiming for a niche market.
Right.
He wanted to transform the
Yeah.
entire mobile phone industry.
Totally. And then just when you think the keynote's wrapping up,
He drops a bomb.
he drops a bomb. He's like, oh, and one more thing.
One more thing.
Apple is dropping computer from its name.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Becoming simply Apple Inc.
Huge statement.
Huge statement. And it really reflected.
Their evolution
Yeah.
beyond personal computers.
Yeah.
And it foreshadowed their future as this company focused on
Yeah.
mobile devices and consumer electronics.
Yeah. And it was a clear sign that they were betting big on the iPhone
You're all
and the future it represented.
totally.
And then he ends the keynote with this classic
Oh, I love this quote.
Wayne Gretzky quote.
I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been.
Such a good quote.
It's such a good quote.
It's so appropriate for Apple.
And it perfectly captures
Your forward-thinking approach.
your forward-thinking approach.
Their willingness to take risks, to anticipate future trends,
Yeah.
and to create products that would shape the world to come.
It's amazing how much of what he laid out in that keynote
I know.
has come to fruition.
It's incredible.
But we've only scratched the surface here.
We have so much more to unpack.
Yeah, we've got so much more to talk about.
So much more to talk about.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
It's amazing how Jobs managed to pack so much into that keynote,
I know.
yet it never felt overwhelming.
Right.
Like he had this knack for distilling complex ideas into these simple, memorable sound bites.
Yeah, he was a master storyteller.
Yeah, and one of those sound bites that stuck with me was when he talked about the iPhone having desktop class applications.
Oh, yeah.
What did that even mean back in 2007?
I mean, it was a bold claim.
Yeah.
But I think it pointed to this future
Okay.
where smartphones,
Wouldn't be limited to just these basic tasks.
right?
Jobs envisioned a device that could handle the kind of things we were used to doing on our computers.
Right.
Browsing the web, checking email,
Yeah.
even gaming,
Right.
all with the same level of power and sophistication. And even though the App Store
Yeah.
wasn't available at launch,
Right.
he hinted at its potential, suggesting that
Yeah.
developers would create all sorts of amazing applications for the iPhone.
Yeah, and that's where the iPhone truly became revolutionary. The
Uh-huh.
App Store, which launched a year later,
Right.
opened up this universe of possibilities.
Right.
Third-party developers could create apps that would extend the functionality of the phone in ways that Apple could never have imagined.
Right.
And it transformed the mobile phone industry, turning the iPhone into this platform
Yeah.
for innovation and creativity.
It's crazy to think back now, was there any skepticism about that? Was everybody just immediately on board with yeah, of course we're going to have apps on our phone?
No, there was definitely a skepticism.
All right.
Some people questioned whether anyone would actually pay for apps.
Right.
They thought it was just this gimmick.
But-
But Jobs, he understood that to create a thriving app ecosystem,
Yeah.
developers needed to be able to make money
Mhm.
from their work.
Right.
And the App Store provided this simple and secure way
Right.
for people to discover, purchase, and download those apps.
So it was kind of a win-win
It was win-win.
for both the developers and the users.
Exactly.
And Jobs also seemed to grasp this potential of the mobile internet,
He did.
predicting that the iPhone would change how we access information on the go.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time that it seemed a little far-fetched.
Well,
Who would want to browse the web on such a small screen?
yeah. I mean, I had the same thought,
No.
but he was spot on, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
I mean, the combination of that full-fledged web browser in Safari
Right.
and fast wireless connectivity
Mm-hmm.
And that user-friendly interface
Yeah.
made the iPhone the perfect device for, browsing the web, checking email,
Yeah.
staying connected wherever you were.
Yeah. It really did usher in the era of mobile internet.
It did.
Like, it's hard to imagine now going back to a time where you couldn't just like pull out your phone
Like
and
Google something.
Google something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jobs even talked about how the iPhone would like revolutionize industries,
He did.
like healthcare and education.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought that was a little bit of hyperbole.
Well,
But looking back, like
he wasn't wrong.
he wasn't wrong.
Hmm.
It's incredible to see how mobile technology
Yeah.
has transformed those sectors.
Yeah. Doctors can access patient data remotely.
Yeah.
Students can learn from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs can build businesses right from their pocket.
It's like he was peering into a crystal ball back in 2007.
I know. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
What's even more remarkable is he wasn't just predicting the future.
Right.
He was actively shaping it.
Right.
The iPhone wasn't just a response to existing trends.
Yeah.
It was a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
It pushed the boundaries of
Yeah.
what technology could do, and it inspired countless others to innovate.
It's funny how some of the things that he highlighted during the keynote seem so basic now.
I know, like scroll.
Scrolling, pinching to zoom.
Right.
But back
They
then,
were revolutionary.
they were revolutionary.
I mean, those seemingly small interactions
Yeah.
were actually crucial to making the iPhone so special.
Mhm.
Jobs understood that the key to creating a truly great product
Yeah.
was to focus on those details
Yeah.
to make the experience feel intuitive and effortless.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a powerful device, it was a delightful one.
Right. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked. Like people focus on the specs and the features,
Yeah.
but it's the little things
Yeah.
that really make a product great.
It's the fit and finish.
Yeah.
It's the attention to detail. It's
Yeah.
the way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And the iPhone just nailed it.
Yeah, it really did. And Jobs also talked about the cultural impact of the iPhone,
He did.
suggesting that it would change the way we communicate, connect, and share experiences.
Yeah, and he was right about that too.
Yeah. Like, did he nail that prediction?
Absolutely. I mean, he recognized that the iPhone was more than just a gadget.
Right.
It was a tool for human connection. The ability to take photos, record videos,
Yeah.
and share them instantly with friends and family
Mhm.
created this powerful new way
Yeah.
to experience the world and stay connected with the people we care about.
Yeah, it's like, think about the rise of social media,
Exactly.
the way we document our lives online.
The way we consume news and entertainment. I mean, so much of it
Yeah.
can be traced back to the iPhone.
Totally.
And the mobile revolution it sparked.
And it's hard to deny the impact the iPhone has had on photography.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him geeking out over that 2-megapixel camera,
Through megapixels.
which seems almost comical now.
I know. But at the time,
It was a big deal
it was a big deal.
to have a decent camera built into your phone.
Yeah, and the iPhone's camera combined with its ease of use and connectivity
Yeah.
really helped usher in this era of mobile photography.
Totally.
Suddenly everyone could capture and share moments from their lives in an instant,
Right.
and it transformed how we document our world.
And let's not forget that, like, at its core,
Yeah,
the iPhone was still an iPod.
it was. Music was deeply intertwined with the iPhone's DNA.
Right. And Jobs made sure to highlight that, like, seamless integration with iTunes,
Yeah.
the ability to sync your music library,
Right.
the intuitive controls for playback. Like, it wasn't just a phone.
No.
It was a music player that fit in your pocket.
That could go anywhere with you.
Yeah. And it wasn't just about playing music.
Right.
It was about discovering new music, too.
Yeah.
The App Store, as you mentioned, opened up this world of possibilities for
Streaming services.
music discovery apps.
Virtual music experiences.
It's crazy.
It's amazing how it transformed the way we consume music.
Yeah.
Made it more accessible, more personalized,
Yeah.
and more social than ever before.
It's remarkable how the iPhone has influenced so many aspects of our lives,
It is.
from communication and entertainment to the way we capture memories, connect with others.
How we learn, how we work.
Yeah.
It's really touched every aspect of our lives.
It's a testament to the power of innovation
Yeah,
and the vision of Steve Jobs.
absolutely.
And we haven't even touched on all the features that came later.
Right.
GPS navigation, Siri, FaceTime.
Yeah.
It's like the iPhone just kept getting better and better.
It's a fantastic example of iterative innovation.
Right.
Apple wasn't content with simply releasing this groundbreaking product. They continued to refine it and improve it,
Right.
adding new features and capabilities
Yeah.
that kept the iPhone at the forefront of that mobile revolution.
It's amazing to think about how far the iPhone has come since that first keynote.
I know.
But what's even more exciting is to think about what the future holds
Right.
for mobile technology.
Where do we go from here?
What's next?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, foldable screens, augmented reality,
Yeah.
advancements in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
The possibilities seem endless.
They do.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
The spirit of innovation that drove the creation of the iPhone is still alive and well.
Yeah.
And that's something to be excited about.
And that's something to be excited about.
Yeah,
You know, it's wild to think about just how much has changed since that 2007 keynote.
it is.
We've gone from like these clunky limited smartphones
Yeah,
to these incredibly powerful devices
I know.
that we rely on for basically everything.
Everything. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. And it's a testament to the pace of technological innovation.
It is.
But while Apple has certainly been a major driver of that change,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that they weren't operating in a vacuum.
No, they weren't.
The iPhone's success really sparked this wave of competition.
It did.
And that competition has been crucial in pushing the entire industry forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, remember all those other companies scrambling to catch up?
I do. It felt like every few months there was a new iPhone killer on the market.
Right. And none of them really, like, dethroned the iPhone,
No.
but they forced Apple to innovate,
Yeah.
to keep pushing the boundaries.
To keep getting better,
Yeah,
which ultimately benefited us as consumers.
totally. And that competition wasn't always pretty.
No, it wasn't.
Like, there were patent wars and lawsuits and lots of mudslinging between these companies.
Yeah, the stakes were high.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted a piece of this rapidly growing market.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that competition benefited consumers.
It did.
Like, we ended up with better products, more choices,
Yeah.
and a much faster pace of innovation.
Exactly.
So looking back, I think it's clear that the iPhone wasn't just a product.
No.
It was a cultural phenomenon.
It was
Like, it changed the way we communicate, consume information, and entertain ourselves.
how we think about the world around us.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate its cultural impact.
Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained in our lives.
Yeah,
It's almost impossible to imagine a world without it.
it is. It's like my 6-year-old niece has never known a world without an iPhone.
I know. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it's interesting to think about how the iPhone has shaped our relationship with technology in general.
Yeah.
Like, it's made technology more personal, more intimate, more accessible.
Yeah, it's put the power of computing literally in the palm of our hands.
Right. And it did so in a way that felt intuitive and natural.
And even delightful.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a tool. It was
Yeah.
an extension of ourselves.
Right. And it continues to evolve.
It does.
Every year there's a new iPhone with new features and capabilities.
It's crazy to think that this device that was so revolutionary back in 2007
Yeah.
is still at the forefront of innovation today.
It really is.
Yeah,
So where do we go from here?
that's the big question, isn't it?
What's next for the iPhone and for mobile technology as a whole?
Yeah. It's tough to predict the future, especially in tech,
Yeah.
where things are constantly changing.
But I mean, you've been following this industry for a long time.
I have.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's safe to say that we're going to continue to see incredible innovation
Yeah.
in the mobile space.
Uh-huh.
You know, artificial intelligence, augmented reality,
Yeah.
new materials and manufacturing techniques, all these things are going to lead to major advancements.
It's an exciting time to be following the evolution of technology.
It is.
And I think, the spirit of innovation that drove the creation of the iPhone,
Yeah,
it's still burning bright.
it is.
And that's something to be excited about.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredible journey
It has.
through the history of the iPhone.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And for you listening, we leave you with this as you hold that sleek, powerful smartphone in your hand.
Yeah.
Take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey that brought it to life.
Yeah. Think about Steve Jobs' vision.
Yeah.
And all the countless engineers and designers and developers who
Yeah.
made it a reality.
The iPhone is really a testament to the power of human ingenuity
It is.
and the transformative potential of technology.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving.